father would definitely not allow me to marry a man who doesn't even have a title. Those thoughts seemed to give her a plan to divorce her current husband. I have to say thank you to my foolish husband, to plan for an easier divorce. She had come up with a plan. It seems that because he's crazy about people of the same gender, he can legitimately request a divorce. Thinking of that husband, Sandrine was angry again because that guy calculated very carefully about the divorce. He's delaying the divorce proceedings because he wants to reduce the compensation. How petty. While she was still thinking, a footstep approached her. Bastian's figure was approaching. The light cast on him made his figure vague and difficult to see clearly. Sandrine was still lost in thought, dreaming that one day Bastian would come to her. Even if it took a little time, he would come to her. When she saw Bastian had come close, she suddenly spoke in a reproachful voice, "Don't you have anything to say to me?" When Bastian was standing in front of her, she called his name again when she didn't get a response, "Bastian." He listened with a cold and emotionless face. On Odette's side, she was hurrying down the long corridor looking for the dressing room. Walking and walking but not finding the dressing room, her eyes looked up and began to doubt. Clearly they said the dressing room was in this direction. Having some doubts about the words, but she still kept walking and looking. Or do I have to go further? Suddenly, as she was walking, her steps stopped when she heard a voice, and it was mentioning her own name and her fiancé's. "If Lady Odette has been chosen as your future wife, at least please tell me the truth beforehand, Bastian." Her face was shocked when she heard the words from the other person. "I thought the friendship between us was only worth that much." Suddenly, as if remembering something when she heard the voice. "This voice, she greeted me just now." Odette stood still listening to them talk. "I don't like that way of speaking, Countess." When Sandrine heard Bastian reply to her, she spoke again. "I thought she knew beforehand. It turns out that was my misunderstanding." Bastian, when he heard that he was misunderstood, smiled and explained, "Denying the relationship between me and Lady Odette, it's just a business relationship. We are working together for each other's benefit." As if afraid that she didn't believe his explanation, Bastian asked, "Is this answer complete enough?" Odette's face became sad after hearing that. Her long eyelashes drooped slightly. She still didn't believe his words and forced Bastian to swear. "Can you swear?" Bastian didn't refuse or swear, just spoke vaguely, "If it's a vow before the gods, I will refuse, because to me it is a meaningless concept." When she saw that Bastian was unwilling to swear as she wanted, she asked with a slightly mocking tone, "Then what about the vow about all your glory and prosperity?" He heard her say that and retorted with a blaming tone, "Isn't that a bit too emotional?" Hearing Bastian say that, knowing she had just slipped up, she laughed and said, "I'm sorry, let's drop it." She hurriedly explained, "Although I know that I am behaving sensitively, but sometimes it is difficult to control emotions." Bastian pretended to understand. "I understand, Countess." While they were talking, Sandrine suddenly remembered a story that a guest had hurriedly told her. "Oh right, not long ago, my father's letter arrived. He knew what Emperor Berg did to you in order to protect the princess." Sandrine continued to tell, "On the contrary, my father thinks that this is perhaps a good opportunity." Odette was shocked when she heard those words. When she heard the next words that Sandrine uttered, instead of just waiting for a divorce and immediately remarrying, "It would be a better prospect if you also had a woman during the time I'm going through the procedures." Bastian replied after hearing that, "My intention is the same as Duke Lavier's." Sandrine happily replied, "It's true that you and my father have cold blood flowing in your bodies." When they just finished their conversation, Odette hurried away. Sandrine grasped Bastian's hand hesitantly. "So." Odette coldly turned away. Behind her she could still hear Sandrine's voice. She used a pleading tone, "Can you grant me a small favor, someone who needs comfort?" Bastian, hearing that, told her to say her request. "Say it, Sandrine." Sandrine made a resolute request without hesitation. "Your day, I give to that girl, instead." The key sentence was still heard by Odette as she left. "Your night, you give to me." Odette hurriedly left. She didn't look back even once. Odette remembered the scene where Bastian said to her, "Act until Princess Isabelle gets married." Knowing that, but in her heart, she still felt a little uncomfortable. Even though she knew that he already had a marriage partner, but nothing could change, because we are just a business relationship for each other's benefit. But for some reason, Odette's hand was trembling like that. "With me." She had a sad expression. "Has nothing to do with it." Sandrine had moved close to Bastian, and her hands were tightly holding his. Trying to get closer to his face to test his opinion, "Bastian." But Bastian slowly took his hand and removed Sandrine's hand. Sandrine was stunned, as if she couldn't believe that her request had been rejected. Bastian. Bastian changed his tone to be somewhat more formal. Countess. Bastian's eyes were gloomy, his hand removed Sandrine's hand, then placed it on her shoulder. He rejected the request with some discomfort. That will probably be very difficult. Bastian pushed Sandrine's hand away forcefully. Bastian closed his eyes and gave a cold smile, saying to Sandrine, I don't think the friendship between us is still good even if it's tainted by momentary desire, is it? Sandrine tilted her head, her deep blue eyes seemed to fall into contemplation because of Bastian's words. She nodded slightly, her eyes murmured softly, okay, friendship, precious friendship is above all. Suddenly, Bastian reached out and touched Sandrine's red hair, got close to her face and whispered, please keep your dignity, Countess. His hand caressed her bright red hair, his eyes gently said, it looks much better like that. Bastian turned and walked away, his appearance as decisive as if he wasn't the one who had just said those words. Sandrine stood still, watching Bastian's back. In her heart she couldn't help but think to herself, his hand and smile are coordinated decisively, even though I know that he only intends to use me. But either way, that's fine. She looked with her sad blue eyes as he disappeared, unconsciously biting her lip. What I don't want is simply like love. Either way, for that man, such a thing is meaningless. Sandrine couldn't help but remember Bastian's appearance, Bastian closets, except for ambition without a stopping point, whatever it is, even yourself, you don't love. Sandrine clenched her hands, trying to suppress the emotions that were surging inside, whispering to herself, just a little more, wait until the divorce proceedings are over. She looked into the distance, her bright red hair swayed slightly, in her heart she was determined, once I return to the Lavier family and become the person he needs the most. Even Bastian will definitely want me. On the green lawn under the bright sun, many couples are standing in a row in the peaceful forest. A girl gently and carefully hands the necklace to the boy. The necklace is neatly worn around the boy's neck, in the center is a sparkling crystal. Bastian explained to Odette, now is the ritual before the party. Hearing that, Odette said worriedly, if it's a ritual, he reassured her, as long as it's an item containing the young lady's heart. If the young lady gives me even a small item, I will repay you with victory. Odette lowered her eyes, her lips moved hesitantly, Captain, I. Bastian silently lowered his head and looked at Odette, thinking to himself, she's a woman who is struggling to shoulder the duties of the nobility from things borrowed from others. Completely without anything that is worth being her own. Bastian reached out and gently touched the pink ribbon in Odette's hair, his voice was gentle, originally, I don't follow this kind of formal ritual. He gently pulled out the ribbon and explained, but this year there are many eyes watching, so following the ritual will be better. Odette watched Bastian intently, stunned when the ribbon was completely removed from her hair. Bastian spoke, this is enough. Bastian placed the ribbon in front of his chest, his fingers gently caressed it, his voice was full of certainty, I will cherish and keep it. On the green grass field, the atmosphere was lively and exciting, the boys were riding on horseback, fighting for control of the small ball. Bastian gripped the reins tightly, controlling the horse to gallop forward, in his other hand he was holding a wooden stick. The stick was tied with the pink ribbon that he took from Odette, fluttering in the wind. Odette's fingers were lightly placed on her lips, her expression was helpless, it doesn't need to be to that extent, hanging it on the stick like that, it's like a display. Suddenly, Odette's expression sank, her emerald eyes seemed to be thinking about something. In her mind, Sandrine's words echoed, your day, I give to that girl, instead, your night, you give to me. Odette lowered her head, her eyes closed slightly, reassuring herself, that's just a personal matter, it has nothing to do with our transaction, I shouldn't worry about it anymore. Suddenly, the man in front shouted, pulling Odette out of her thoughts, that's right, run. On the field, Bastian and another boy were fighting for the ball under the cheering stands, a little more. Bastian glanced at the boy behind him, his eyes a little cold, he's really persistent. He looked straight ahead at a boy who was trying to protect the goal post, thinking to himself, like this, it will be difficult to penetrate the defense to the goal post. Even though the distance to the goal post is still far, but it's not impossible. Bastian jerked the black reins. Bastian leaned over. His right hand swung the stick forcefully towards the small ball, his eyes focused intently, there was no way other than trying his luck here. The wooden stick hit the ball rolling on the grass hard. Bastian narrowed his blue eyes, shining with determination. He leaned over as much as possible, swinging the stick with all his might, creating a white arc. Under Bastian's strong force, the small ball soared into the blue sky. Under the stunned eyes of the goalkeeper, the small ball flew into the goal, making his mouth drop open. The referee raised the green flag, signaling that the goal had been recognized. The expressions of Bastian's teammates were radiant, filled with joy because of the beautiful goal. They cheered excitedly, "Hooray, you're crazy." Hearing the compliments from his teammates, Bastian smirked slightly, his deep blue eyes looked into the distance, his expression contained confidence and a bit of arrogance. Bastian sat straight on the back of the white horse, still holding the stick tied with the pink ribbon in his hand. His calm eyes looked towards the crowd cheering for him. He tilted his head, his blue eyes glanced slightly towards the crowd as if looking for something. He found Odette clapping in the crowd, however, her face was a bit negligent, seemingly not very focused on what had just happened in the match. He pursed his lips slightly, his blue eyes shone with a bit of disappointment mixed with disappointment. Odette nodded slightly to Bastian, showing that she knew, her eyes closed slightly, her dark purple hair gently moved according to her actions. He frowned slightly, his eyes looked dimly into the distance as if he was thinking. Bastian sat on the back of the white horse, his expression serious, nodding in response to Odette, thinking to himself, "I will be loyal to the duty assigned to me, nothing more." The white horse stepped on the green grass. On the horse Bastian pondered about Odette. Until now, that girl is only fulfilling her duty. Bastian controlled the white horse to turn around in the opposite direction of where Odette was standing, decisively walking away, in his heart bitterly, just that. A light pink wooden door with a graceful arch, next to it hung a blue flag, that was the waiting room for the players. Sandrine tilted her head and looked at Lucas and asked, "Lucas, I'm here, where's Bastian?" Lucas was cleaning up, hearing her ask, he replied, "Bastian went to take a shower, because he was the leading hero in today's victory, so he received a baptism of champagne." He turned his back to Sandrine, innocently continuing to talk without noticing that she was silently looking at the stick that was still tied with the ribbon with frustration. Even this year, with the position of the main fighter, Bastian has never lost in the competition even once. That admirable guy, whatever he does he wins. It's really lucky to be on the same team with him. Looking at the pink ribbon on the stick, Sandrine couldn't help but think, Bastian has never participated in the pre-match ritual even once, because he is a man who despises the formal rituals created by the nobility. Sandrine frowned tightly, her blue eyes shone with envy and jealousy, but this time it made others jealous of that woman's ribbon. She clenched the ribbon, pulling it hard from Bastian's stick, bitterly thinking, the first talisman to be given to Bastian must be me. Sandrine took the ribbon out to the garden, her hand reached out to prepare to throw it into the mud puddle. She slowly let go, her hand stretched out, letting the pink ribbon gently fall down. Sandrine's eyes flashed with coldness, her lips curled up to form a sinister smile. In her heart she said to herself, I found it an eyesore throughout the match. Watching the ribbon gradually sink into the mud puddle made her extremely satisfied. Now, it looks beautiful. Sandrine looked at Lucas and asked softly, Lucas, that gentle lady, Lady Odette will also be participating in the celebration party for the players, right? Lucas turned his head to confirm that logic. Perhaps so, because she is Bastian's partner. Sandrine was silent for a long time. She listened to the advice. Come on, don't worry, Sandrine, nothing like what you're worried about is going to happen. You also know that Bastian is facing a headache because of the crazy princess. Sandrine hesitantly replied, Of course I know. Lucas gave some suggestions. Just try to believe and wait. It's just a pawn that will be discarded once the princess's matter is resolved. Moreover, how dramatic was the first time they met, Bastian and that girl. It was very. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly remembered something. Raising his hand to stop the words he was about to say, Lucas thought, perhaps Bastian would be embarrassed if Sandrine found out. Sandrine darkened her face and threatened him, looking at him and questioning, what, how intense was the first meeting? Lucas was intimidated by that aura, his words were a bit stuttering, that thing, anyway, there is absolutely no way that Bastian and that girl will develop feelings. Sandrine looked at him to implicitly confirm, that's also what I think, Lucas, there is absolutely no way that there will be romantic feelings. Carrying a thought in her heart, she silently regretted, Lady Odette, the obvious truth is that that girl is very beautiful. I didn't expect such a beautiful woman to be living and cleaning up the mess of her incompetent father until now. If she was determined, she could have married a rich man and escaped poverty. Immediately Sandrine had already deduced based on the current situation. Could it be that she has bigger ambitions? That's why she's been living in poverty until now. Quickly putting forward a hypothesis, she implicitly suspected Odette's actions. She has received support from the emperor to come to this marriage, because Bastian closets is the most coveted object. A woman who has nothing to lose, I don't know what she will do. In her heart a little unwilling, if that's the case then now, I also. Her hand lowered, the ribbon made a decision, I won't obediently stand by and watch. Lost in thought, Odette appeared from the opposite side, now I just need to attend the party hosted by the Navy and it's over. Odette walked gently with resignation, because I accepted the invitation as a partner, I must of course be responsible until the end. A lady stroked her chin and came over, expressing encouragement, how can this be, Lady Odette, be strong. As if awakened from her random thoughts, she was stunned, huh? Looking far away, a group of nobles gathered together in front. Odette quickly stepped closer. Her face darkened, countless judgmental eyes looked towards Odette. Once again, negative thoughts surrounded her, that person doesn't want the best for me. She remembered that scene, like the ribbon being thrown away as soon as the match ended. Odette looked at herself as if reflected in the past, for that person, I have run out of today's use value. Coming from afar, a voice asked worriedly, are you okay, young lady? Odette pursed her lips and expressed, if you don't mind, madam, can I ask you for a small favor? The madam immediately agreed, anything, young lady, just say it naturally. Odette evaluated herself, I had intended to attend the party sincerely in vain. She simply gave a reason, I'm not feeling well, so perhaps I will have to go home early. Because Captain Closet's preparations seemed to be delayed. Her face was a bit resentful, Odette looked sadly at the madam, sincerely thanking her, if you could help me deliver the message to him, madam. Her heart had already cooled. Perhaps it would be better if I made the boundaries clear from the beginning. She quietly left with those thoughts, the money I get from the royal family, if I don't need that money, I will have no reason to act in this ridiculous play. Odette lowered her eyes, her heart more thoughtful, because of my father, I can't break away from that allowance and live. Odette tried to tell herself to encourage herself, I will save money and wait until Tira graduates, and then run away to a place without my father, even if it means reducing my sleep time. I want to have more jobs than now. In despair, she accidentally saw a job board with a job posting. Odette's eyes lit up as she saw a glimmer of hope. She looked up and read clearly each word of the request, looking for a tutor, preferably a young unmarried woman, from the middle class with education, dignified appearance and in-depth knowledge of literature, foreign languages, music and etiquette, guaranteed stable income if there are suitable elements. From afar, a horse-drawn carriage came speeding. The person sitting inside was Franz. He was surprised when he saw her back, Lady Odette, the woman who should be attending the celebration party with my brother, why is she here? He didn't hesitate to jump out of the carriage, I have urgent business, so I'll get off here. Franz thought to himself, this is definitely fate, otherwise there is no way to explain our chance reunion. He firmly confirmed to himself, I recognized this feeling from the first time I met her, perhaps this is an opportunity to confirm what that is. Dusk gradually covered the city. Lucas walked beside Bastian and lamented, if I had known this would happen, I would have kept Sandrine here, that would probably be better than attending the party without a partner. Bastian glanced and was lost in thought, this action is not like Lady Odette, not coming to greet us directly and leaving. He remembered the memory he had of Odette, she is someone who always strictly adheres to every ritual to the point of seeming arrogant. Erihai interrupted his thoughts, calling out loudly and pointing in one direction, hey, Bastian, isn't that your ribbon? He looked at it, his words confirmed it even more, the beggar princess's talisman that she gave you. Bastian couldn't believe his eyes, Erihai's words kept echoing in his head, why is that stuff down there? Could it be, Bastian, didn't you throw it away? The group of young masters outside heard about it and immediately made a judgment, could it be that she was shocked to see that and went back? It could be, anyway. It's a good thing, of course it will be easier to grasp the topic of discussion and escape it. Lucas of course didn't believe it, quickly pressing, Bastian, so that thing. Bastian cleared his throat, you said that Countess Lennet came to the waiting room earlier, right? Bastian's words made Lucas feel guilty, so he defended, could there be a misunderstanding? If that thing is said, Sandrine will definitely. Without waiting for Lucas to explain, he resolutely stepped quickly. Ignoring Lucas's call, Bastian. Bastian knelt down in front of the dirty ribbon, why like this, are you crazy? Lucas behind him kept stopping him, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. His eyes were somewhat sad, Bastian looked carefully and confirmed, this thing is mine. Recalling the past, Bastian reminded himself, I have been entrusted for some reason, I will cherish and keep it. Without hesitation, he reached out to pick up the dirty ribbon, even if I don't like it, no matter what, it is currently under my jurisdiction. His face was determined, therefore I must protect it, what belongs to me. Franz on this side followed Odette's every move. His eyes were worried, he hid against the wall to observe. Lady Odette, will you be okay? Remembering those meaningful words, did he throw away the ribbon? Clearly wasn't it implying that the days after will be playing around in moderation and then throwing it away? Franz kept worrying about Odette. Both my father and mother think that the embarrassing marriage arranged by the emperor is a good opportunity. It's something to be grateful for if the useless future bride can grasp this weakness of his. In his thoughts, he didn't want her to be the one who suffered, but if that's the case, then what will the life of that girl be like in the future? Everyone is despising and ostracizing her. Even my brother. Franz in his heart had already wanted to protect her. What if Lady Odette was mine? At the majestic castle located in the ancient neighborhood, Robes walked from the hallway, his eyes quickly observing. The servant looked at Bastian, thinking implicitly, on a day off, it would be great to rest a bit. Why doesn't he know anything other than work like that? Keeping a polite attitude, the servant softly called, Master, it seems that the tea has cooled, I will prepare and offer new tea. Robes's eyes met the books on the table. Only then did he notice the content mentioned, list of women's clothing. Bastian gave the cold tea to the servant. Thank you, Robes. The servant gently took it. Yes, sir. Looking at the current situation, Robes had implicitly known, the girl who always wears clothes borrowed from others, so she is being pointed at by the upper class and called the beggar princess. The servant mocked the unfair life. It's funny that the so-called generosity of the emperor is so stingy, if they are taking advantage of her for the scheme of protecting his daughter. At least they should take care of her appearance properly, shouldn't they? At least a suitable dress so that she can escape the label of beggar princess. The servant ran in from outside, calling loudly, Master. Robes's face was confused. Bastian spoke. What's wrong again, Robes? The servant anxiously announced, currently outside the front gate. Dessen, Hollow Cheeks was invited in to continue the conversation. I didn't expect a guy like you to be touted as something called a hero of the empire. Bastian sitting opposite emphasized his words. That was the first fair meeting in a place where we didn't know anything about each other. Dessen threatened, because I know everything how it is. So you better not have the idea of deceiving me. He crossed his arms and replied in a bored manner, so that's it, it's lucky that I don't have to explain in detail, then please go to the main content, Mr. Duke. Seeing that Bastian's face had not changed at all, Dessen was silent for a while. He, like a demon, slammed his hand hard on the table and cursed, the lineage of the loan sharks who picked up scraps and coveted the daughter of the princess. I will definitely not give my daughter to a guy like you. He lowered his eyes, as if evaluating the situation again. Bastian heavily criticized, it's no different from a dog. These words were like a fire igniting the fuse. What did you just say? Bastian tried to stay calm, giving a slow explanation. Those words are not worthy of someone who has once sold his daughter to me before. It seems that your mood has changed quickly in the time we haven't met, huh? He stuttered, arguing, that was a mistake I made in the path I was in. Bastian smiled mockingly at his tattered theory. If I didn't open my heart with tolerance, then there would be no way to pretend that nothing like that happened. He stopped for a moment, slowly thinking, according to sources, it is rumored that that guy has fallen for Odette, to the point where the rumors have spread throughout the upper class. Bastian grasped this greedy guy. Compared to anyone, I am the one who knows very well how infatuated men in love can be. Dessen loudly set conditions, even if I believe in the emperor and what everyone says, Odette's father is still me here, no matter what the emperor's wishes are, to get that child, you need my permission. Bastian's face darkened before the words of the immoral father. As long as I'm determined, I have the right to marry Odette to another place immediately. What hero? Compared to someone who is no different from being rich, a family with dignity will be much more worthy of Odette. He used his daughter to threaten him, therefore, for you to be worthy of my daughter, shouldn't you show sincerity and effort worthy of it? Dessen's words were like wanting to trade his daughter for money, the sincerity and effort of a rich guy. Bastian's soulless eyes affirmed, so you want to mention money. He stuttered, because that's what I mean. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Bastian. The Duke will not receive any price from me. The above affirmation surprised Dessen. What? Bastian used his words to reverse the current situation. Yes, just do that. If you want to marry your daughter into a family with dignity, currently the emperor will not immediately let go of your daughter. You will have to wait until next time, but for the time being you should be cautious, it will be better He gave his reasons, making Deson's face darken. Suppose there is a rumor that the young lady has touched the fabric, will there be any major obstacles in your marriage exchange? He now only knew how to shout loudly, what are you saying? Bastian left with cold words, if you wait quietly, I will definitely return your daughter intact. That night. It was the same at the casino. Not achieving his wishes, he trembled with anger, you dare, you brat dares. He cast sharp eyes towards the back, warning, if you want to speak loudly, next time I recommend you go to the Imperial Palace. His face changed color, his teeth gnashing together. With his domineering nature, Deson violently overturned the table. Do you think you will be safe even if you treat me like this? Bastian just let him be, implicitly evaluating, just as predicted, so pathetic, since getting involved with that girl, I keep getting caught up in things like this. He commanded Robes, take that person back safely. The servant could only respond, yes, master. He didn't forget to instruct, and one more thing, please contact the Sabine shop and make a date to visit for me. I plan to have a few dresses tailored, please make time. Odette was by the window, holding a letter and carefully observing. Her eyes were even more annoyed, perhaps it would be better if you wrote down what you plan to do, and where. The message left requested a meeting at the fountain at 3 p.m. tomorrow. From the outside, a small hand placed on the doorknob from the outside. He pushed the door and innocently stepped in. In front of him appeared a woman lying on the ground, blood flowing nonstop. His eyes were soulless as if that thing was too normal for him. Someone soon appeared on the side. Mrs. Closets and Jeff stood next to each other, smiling eerily. Bastian gradually woke up from the nightmare. He held his face and gently rubbed his tangled hair, falling into contemplation. The silent space enveloped, making the mood even more dreary. From the clinic came the doctor's instructions, the left shoulder that was operated on has completely healed. They looked over the old wound left by the bullet and said, the traces of the gunshot wound have also faded. The words were like implicitly congratulating Bastian, affirming, sure enough, youth recovers quickly, you will recover much faster than expected. The doctor looked at him with gentle eyes and announced, although the situation has the possibility of going to war, I don't want to recommend it. Dr. Kramer was Bastian's main attending physician. Bastian politely replied when he heard the news from the doctor, I believe you will only convey the truth to the Navy, skipping the doctor's own views. Dr. Kramer sincerely worried and once again advised him, Bastian, you already have enough reputation now, so stop and retire, what do you think? I don't want to personally sign the papers that make you a cripple again. He put on his white coat and made clear his decision, my duty is to protect the border and maintain peace, even the battle line. The doctor heard this and was even more worried. Because you, who have returned as a patient, say such words, even if I am grateful, I no longer believe it. Bastian interrupted, that was an exceptional situation. Dr. Kramer gave an example, even if it's just 1 in 10,000, what if that thing happens again? In Bastian's words, there was no worry, it doesn't matter, I'll have to receive another medal. The doctor breathed a long sigh, implicitly recognizing that stubbornness, he's still like he was 14 years ago. Quickly from the outside, the man led a boy, pushing the door open. He shouted loudly towards the opposite side, I have taken Sophia's son out of his father's house and brought him here, those beasts have made the boy like this. Dr. Kramer was startled, immediately turning his eyes to look. He quickly took them to another direction, please come this way. Closets wanted to abandon the eldest son left by his former wife, and Illis, who wanted to avenge his daughter by making the child the heir. After Sophia left this world, the war between the two families had been going on for many years, finally ending with Closet's victory. He loudly pointed out the bruises on the boy, and the boy's wounds, isn't that obvious evidence of abuse? Dr. Kramer gently asked, how did the boy get so injured? The boy paused, giving many reasons, fell backwards, injured from fencing, slipped while hiking. All the scars appeared as if due to the child's mistakes while training to be the heir. But old man Illis firmly accused Closets of abusing his former wife's son. In the end, it couldn't become a reality. Jeff Closets had boasted in an exaggerated way that it was the education of the successor. Because he didn't leave any evidence to be caught. He regarded Bastian, the son of his former wife, as the heir. He resolutely remarried as soon as his wife had just died, and what a coincidence that the child of the later wife was born on the day of Chishi, that was a move to appease the scandal and suspicion. Starting from the suspicious incidents. The education of the heir was accompanied by cruel training methods. In the morning before the sun rose, Bastian, not yet fully awake, was dressed neatly and sitting in front of his desk. After working hard with learning that at the same age was completely impossible to grasp. Following that was rigorous physical training no different from military training. That child worked diligently to the point that his eyes were red and his hands were swollen, even nearly breaking his neck from falling off his horse, and when he had just mastered how to ride a horse. The boy had taken a gun and wandered alone in the forest all night with his soft hands. Since his mother left this world, at only 5 years old, he had been to live in this hospital 12 times, that was the amount of time that child had lived within the walls of the closet's house. Sometimes I regret revealing about Sophia being murdered. Bastian knew all the things around him, he implicitly evaluated, if I had closed it off that it was a normal death, she left this world after giving birth like that. He spoke politely, then I'll see you again at the next examination, so perhaps an old man Illis's heart, he would not have accumulated such deep resentment. He just left with his calculations, if that's the case, will the unfinished revenge become that child's mission? At the Royal City, Sabine Taylor shop. Odette stood in front of the sign, thinking for a long time, if it's Sabine, it seems like the shop that the noble ladies mentioned at that time. Bastian appeared from behind, gesturing to her, let's go in, Lady Odette. They quickly moved inside. Inside, someone greeted, long time no see, Bastian. Hilda Sabine, the owner of Sabine Taylor's shop, she smiled to welcome her distinguished guest. Bastian solemnly replied to the lady, thank you for accepting the request, Mrs. Sabine. Hilda spoke gratefully, oh my, between us, there's no need to say such words. Maria's nephew is like my nephew. She glanced at the girl behind, speaking to greet, please come in, Miss Odette, to be able to welcome a distinguished guest like you is my honor. Shop owner Hilda suggested to Odette, first I will take your measurements, then we will discuss it in more detail. These words made her somewhat suspicious, I had been suspicious of the place I was. Suddenly led to without knowing that the destination was a high-end shop, but this thing. She strongly spoke, I'm sorry but it seems there is something misunderstood, I didn't come to have clothes tailored. Bastian reached out to resolve the situation, sorry, Mrs. Sabine. He used his words to reverse the situation, madam, please excuse us for a moment. Somewhat not understanding, but Mrs. Hilda also agreed, that thing, any amount of time is fine, when the two of you have finished talking, let me know. Odette took a long time to speak, scolding him, that's too rude, because of this, you didn't say where we were going until the end. Bastian turned away, only replying coldly, this place is fully booked until the spring of next year, if not for the long-standing friendship between Mrs. Sabine and my aunt. There would be no such privilege. Odette said sternly, even if this is whatever place, my heart has no intention of wearing clothes that Captain bought, you are forcing me to accept an unwanted gift in this way. He repeated those words, grinding his teeth together, gift? Bastian faced her, staring clearly, no. His words were slightly implied, somewhat teasing, like wanting to give her a gift so he put on this show? Odette didn't have time to say anything, he had quickly left. Calmly sitting down on the chair, he loudly asked provocatively, does the young lady know what high society calls you? Crossing his arms, he emphasized decisively, beggar princess. Just like that, in front of Odette, he made disparaging remarks, making her uncomfortable. In a moment, the whole world will know that Miss Odette is my woman. However, if you are looked down upon just because you don't have a suitable outfit, in my position, isn't it also difficult? Until this moment, Odette clenched her palm, speaking, I know this decision was made after considering all the influence of the rumors and criticisms that will take place about this marriage. Am I remembering it wrong? He raised a crystal cup and taunted, of course it will affect my honor and dignity. Gently shaking the glass in his hand, Bastian thoughtfully spoke his mind, but not money. If the young lady's pride comes from a noble lineage, then mine is money. The words passed Odette's ears, but it seemed like nothing but malicious words, whatever I get, I want it to be the best, the most expensive, the most magnificent. Things like that, I hope that Lady Odette will also cooperate with me. With her past experience, she gently retorted, but I have to apologize to you, of course I don't like the demeaning nickname of the captain, even so I didn't express such contemptuous emotions. So I hope the captain will also show respect to that extent. Bastian looked at her, silently evaluating her qualities, as expected, she is not obedient even once. He tilted his head and lowered his eyes, saying a few words, the grandson of a scrap shop, that's what I have to accept unless I am reborn. Bastian used assertive words, making her flustered, for those born with noble blood, this may be something that is not valued, not to that extent. He left a final sentence, making her ponder, but the young lady's case is not much different. Bastian looked at her affectionately and advised, let's solve the problems that can be solved and live. Outside, the tailor entered and suggested, then I will start taking measurements. Odette quietly followed the required gestures on the tailor's side. Oh my. Hilda looked at Odette without taking her eyes off her, silently admiring. From the first glance, I knew that she had a beautiful figure, but the young lady is even more beautiful than I thought. Her eyes kept moving according to her movements. I kept thinking that I would be facing a country girl living in poverty, but it's unbelievable, she cooperates skillfully and gracefully with the assistants. Hands. Thinking of this, the shop owner smiled secretly. If it is such a charming young lady, it's easy to understand why Bastian is acting so unusually. The tailor bowed and announced, now it's done. Hilda quickly seized the opportunity to offer new products. Please wait a moment, there happens to be a dress that seems to suit the young lady, you will surely look beautiful in it. The curtain closed, leaving Odette alone inside, stunned. She clenched her arm as if it was trembling uncontrollably. The sound coming from inside made Bastian notice from the outside. Somewhat worried, he thought, even at this time, could she have caught a cold? Bastian noticed the blanket nearby. He called out to Odette, making her startled, young lady, come and take a blanket to put on, their staff seemed to be very busy. The situation was a bit awkward, she spoke softly, Captain, at this time, He quickly understood the problem and replied reassuringly, I will turn my face away. The young lady doesn't need to worry. She awkwardly fell silent for a long time. Then she gently lifted the curtain to one side. Bastian stood right in front, turning around and looking in another direction. Odette grabbed the blanket quickly, embarrassed, thank you. She thought self-reproachfully, did my cough annoy him? From inside, Hilda caught Bastian leaving the changing area. Her heart suddenly felt something joyful. Soon understanding the circumstances of his grandmother Maria, Hilda thought to herself, Maria completely doesn't understand her grandson's thoughts, so she is worried. Everything was as planned by the shop owner, but Maria, I only glanced at it and I knew it clearly, there is an obvious truth that I have recognized throughout several decades of managing the clothing shop. Following Bastian's footsteps, she concluded silently, money, men only spend it for their women, otherwise there is no evidence to show affection more certain than that. Outside, the servants quickly loaded the luggage onto the carriage. Odette behind looked at Bastian with a suspicious gaze. In just a moment, he spent an amount of money equal to a year's living expenses for my family. He looked over and announced to her, because I have an appointment in advance, so we will be difficult to have dinner together. In her heart, she also wanted to refuse. I also don't intend to have dinner with you. Bastian proposed thoughtfully, the young lady please get on the carriage and return, Hans will take the young lady to her residence. She also asked back, what about the captain? Without hesitation, he answered, reassuring her, the meeting place is also nearby, so I can walk there. His eyes looked into the distance, his words were somewhat suspended, moreover. Bastian made clear his thoughts that he had been thinking, I think that there would be nothing good if these things were to fall into the Duke's eyes. How does the young lady feel about leaving the luggage at Triaga first and then taking the young lady home? Odette immediately agreed, yes, even if not, I was also going to say that to the captain. He just quickly left, then the young lady please be careful on the way, Lady Odette. Her regretful eyes followed Bastian's back as he disappeared. She looked at the things in front of her and couldn't deny that, although he said it was for his own reputation and dignity, but in the end these are things for me. Thinking of this, she also showed her sincerity, although it's not what I want, but when I need to bow my head, I still have to bow my head, thank you very much today, Captain. These words once again made Bastian look at her with a different gaze. They just faced each other in silence. He sat on the carriage, his face extremely thoughtful, he is determined to keep the etiquette until the end? Just unconsciously smiling again. The carriage stopped in front of the magnificent house. The butler quickly came to welcome the captain back home, you're only back now, Captain. Bastian defended, because dinner ended late, what's the matter? The butler stuttered with a flustered face, the princess. The next words made him fall into confusion, Her Royal Highness the Princess, is currently, here. From afar, there was a voice calling his name urgently, Bastian. Isabel happily rushed over and hugged Bastian, I came to see you. The atmosphere seemed to sink, making her confused, Bastian, why isn't he saying anything? His eyes, along with his unhappy mood, just stared at her. A decisive word and then turning to leave, I will escort you back to the royal palace, let's go. Isabel pitifully lowered her head, complaining, it can't be like that, it was difficult for me to escape from the summer palace. She loudly shouted, intentionally attracting Bastian's attention. To get to this place, how much effort did I put in? He glanced at her, expressing dissatisfaction, pointing out the mistake. The princess disguised like that can't deceive the royal guards. They will soon come to find your highness. So before that, you must leave this place. She even more clung to him, her face almost crying. Are you still treating me like a child? Look carefully, Bastian, I am now a grown woman, a woman who is willing to give up the crown for you. Bastian's words were even colder. Whether your highness is a child or a woman, what does it have to do with me? Isabel used her title to prove her feelings, because I am a princess? Is it because of the difference in status? So you have no intention of recognizing my feelings. Pretending to be innocent, reenacting the painful scene, continuing to cling to him. Actually, I am also very sad about my identity as a princess, Bastian, if I could escape these shackles. How good would it be? Bastian knew a lot of stories behind her, being treated like a beggar and trampled. Even that person was her cousin. She is a beggar without self-respect. But she still tried her best to protect her dignity. His words were even more forceful. He spoke to remind, the princess must hold that shackle tightly, it will be better. Each word was like a stone hitting Isabel's head, making her speechless. Even in such a chaotic situation, the patience and respect that I have for you is because you are the emperor's daughter. Unable to hide all her confusion, but still trying to act out the final part. Ultimately, what did you just say? Losing all patience, Bastian's face revealed obvious annoyance. Therefore, please be deeply grateful to your father, the emperor, as much as possible, your highness. Hitting the sore spot, Isabel teared up. No, this is not so. Unable to restrain herself, she shouted like her terrible father, because of you I have done something, thrown away everything and only thought for you. Outside, there was a loud knock on the door. It seems the guards had arrived. Isabel threw away her image, kneeling down and begging, therefore, don't treat me like this, okay, please, Bastian. Bastian didn't pay attention to those words. The feelings that I can have for the princess can only be the loyalty of an imperial soldier to the royal family. The words just now were like thunder. She was stunned in place. Bastian reached out and opened the door wide, welcoming the cavalry to enter. He spoke to declare, Her Royal Highness the Princess is here. Very honestly declaring, he recounted the entire process. I had just returned from the outside when I saw Her Highness coming to my house in this appearance. I was planning to escort her back to the royal palace. When you arrived at the right time, then I would like to withdraw. But in response to Bastian's words, he also had a summons. No, you will have to come with us, Captain Closets. Each word spoken further affirmed the serious situation of the issue. Please come to the royal palace as quietly and quickly as possible. The royal decree has just been issued. The city gradually sank into a lonely night. Tira innocently asked again for confirmation. Is it true that you will take me to the amusement park? Odette looked at her happily and accepted. Yes, Tira, let's go next Sunday. Hearing this, Tira happily thanked her. Thank you, really thank you very much. Odette also unconsciously smiled following her younger sister's happiness. She thought back to her current path, the tutoring job that I found on the advertising wall that day. The remuneration is much better than I thought. It is an attractive job. They even provide accommodation. I can escape my father and the allowance, of course. I also won't need to act with that man, although sometimes I see his good intentions, but I won't know what his intentions are. Coming to this point, Odette thought endlessly, the man has another marriage partner for himself. What clothes should I wear to go out? Before leaving, let's just follow the contract correctly. Looking far out the window, outside was a dark color. She longed for a peaceful city, a warm south, to a small town near the sea. What if I started a new life? She spoke softly to her younger sister, telling her the plan. Tira, after you graduate, let's leave really far away, without Dad, just the two of us. Tira looked at her sister with a confused face. Her innocent sister probed and confirmed, must we leave, sister? Just the two of us still staying here but renting our own house to live together, wouldn't that be good? Odette pointed out some points to persuade her younger sister. Even so, but the capital is crowded, and the rent is also expensive, if we live in a small town. It wouldn't be too inconvenient. This was a bit unexpected, so Tira haltingly considered, I will try to think about it. Following her younger sister's response but only receiving one sentence, now I'm sleepy, I'm going to sleep, you also go to sleep early. That's right. Odette once again fell into thought, once Tira has grown up, then she will be able to take care of herself. If he comes, me leaving alone will probably be okay. Before Tira could leave the room, she suddenly remembered something. Ah, that's right, sister. Looking at Odette, asking clearly each word, who is Closets? She looked at Tira, trying to avoid the subject. Where did you hear this name from, please? Her younger sister also didn't hesitate to say, Bastion will handle everything. Dad said it like that. Just now there were some guests who came, it seemed like about money matters. A very bad premonition about this made Odette freeze. Dad knows about the existence of that man. With a myriad of stories happening in her heart, Odette grabbed a coat and left. Could it be that Dad found that person and caused reckless actions? Ignoring her younger sister calling from behind, Hey, sister, are you planning to go out, at this late hour? Seeming very rushed, Odette only answered a few words urgently and left immediately. I suddenly remembered that I have an appointment. I'll be back soon. I have to meet the captain, immediately. At the majestic city, it gradually sank deeply into the lonely darkness. From inside, there were suddenly many very strong noises. Just like that, Bastion was being taught a lesson continuously. Strong slaps landed. Queen Bergs darkened her face and denounced each word. You dare to do this, you dare to make fun of the royal family. He was silent before the terrible criticisms. Bastion Closets, tonight don't even think about surviving and leaving the royal palace. The queen, in her anger, nearly lost control. A hand quickly placed on her shoulder, trying to reassure her. A decisive voice rang out, Calm down, your majesty. The emperor comforted the queen at times like these. Shouldn't we be calm? Emperor Bergs frowned worriedly, then ordered his subordinates, You, take the queen back to rest. The servants bowed and received the order, Yes, your majesty. While the queen still showed a look of unwillingness, she glanced at Bastion beside her with angry eyes before turning to leave the hall, her figure gradually disappearing, leaving a heavy atmosphere in the vast palace. Emperor Berg stood silently, hand on his forehead as if trying to calm himself after the chaos just now. He sighed softly, about Isabel, as soon as it dawns, I will send the princess abroad. She will not be able to return to Berg until the wedding takes place. After making a decision, the emperor instructed Bastion, the reason for going abroad is announced as to rest, because her health is not good so the princess needs time to rest before the wedding. Bastion stood up straight and seriously replied, Yes, your majesty, I will remember. After everything had temporarily subsided, the emperor recalled what he knew. Isabel gave the nanny a sleeping pill, then disguised herself as a maid and escaped from the summer palace. However, what made him hesitate was that Bastion's side had no suspicious actions, which made him confused, but about Bastion's side, no suspicions of accomplice could be found. After the dance festival, the emperor had people follow Bastion. After the dance festival, I had people follow him, but all day today he only met Odette. He took that child to the high-end clothing store and even bought countless luxury gifts. Through tracking, the emperor discovered another truth. Through tracking him, I learned another truth. He and the daughter of Duke Lavier meet frequently. In the quiet scene, two portraits hung next to each other, Odette and Sandrine den Lavier, both with their backs turned. The emperor despised Bastion, the granddaughter of Emperor Berg and the daughter of the Pelian noble family. He is a shameful opportunist, catching two fish and weighing the pros and cons. Bastion's image appeared with blonde hair, cold eyes, and a neat vest exuding nobility. The emperor didn't deny anything, only calmly and coldly concluding, but at least he was not involved in Isabel's escape play. Scene change. Emperor Bergs appeared with eyes as sharp as knives, the first princess of Berg, the daughter of Duke Lavier, even Odette. The emperor glanced at Bastion standing opposite him, his voice mixed with anger and suspicion. Are there any other women outside of the captain that I need to know more about? You should say it all at once here, Bastion Closets. Who are you, ultimately? The atmosphere was extremely tense. Bastion clenched his fist, raising it in front of his chest. He bowed solemnly, in a calm voice, he said, Please give the order, your majesty, I will be the one to follow that order. Facing him, Emperor Bergs gave a cold smile, tilting his head slightly, asking with scrutiny, As long as I give the order, anything, you will follow? Without a moment's hesitation, Bastion replied briefly, Yes, that's right. The emperor's eyes became profound, then he nodded slightly, showing satisfaction, as expected of a soldier called a hero, but then he immediately fell silent. But Bastion still maintained a calm gaze, but the emperor's inner thoughts were, this person is definitely not the type to submit under power and order. Just by looking at those eyes I can know. Those are the eyes of someone who will bite back, regardless of his master. In the emperor's mind, a harsh image appeared, a leather collar locked with iron chains. If so, then what kind of lock must I tie him with and tame him? He slowly turned around, his back straight, and a cold voice rang out, whether it was intentional or not, but because of you, the honor of my daughter and the royal family has been tarnished. Moreover, this is an important event for the entire empire, not just the marriage of a princess. Coming to this point, he spoke with emphasis, Bastian, the national marriage of Crown Prince Belop and Isabel must take place smoothly, you will certainly agree, right? Before those ice-cold eyes, Bastian Closet still maintained his familiar calmness. He stood up straight, his eyes shone with determination. I of course hope that the alliance with Belop will be successful, Your Majesty. The Emperor stood by the large window, looking out at the night sky that was falling outside. Under the faint light of the stars, his voice became solemn and heavy with warning. If there are any problems with this marriage, if the reason from that leads to the security of the empire being threatened, I will absolutely not forgive you. Facing that threat, Bastian still didn't flinch. His face was as calm as the surface of a still lake. He spoke in a deep but decisive voice, I will return to the front line. As long as Your Majesty gives the order to the naval fleet, even if it's tomorrow, I will immediately. But before he could finish speaking, a shout exploded like thunder. Do you think the problem can be solved with just that? The Emperor's eyes blazed like fire. He turned around, the light reflecting his serious face and sharp eyes. I will speak straight to the point. At that moment, the entire space seemed to freeze. Bastian paused slightly, his eyes stunned when the command was thrown out like a sword. You must get married immediately. Captain Bastian Closets. In the middle of the night, an electric tram quietly rolled along the empty streets. Inside, Odette, wearing a hooded cloak, sat quietly, her eyes shone with sadness and worry. The tram stopped in front of a large villa. She stepped down, knocked on the door and was greeted by a butler. Our master is away. He said politely, I am very sorry. But even if you wait, I don't know when they will be back. The girl nodded slightly, muttering, so that's it. The butler looked at her with some curiosity, answering, I will pass the message to the master if you leave a message. She still patiently asked, please tell me, did Duke Dessen ever come here? Odette looked up, her eyes shone with sincerity, just let me know that, please help me. The butler looked at her for a long time, his eyes softened, seeming to be thinking about something. Then he confessed, yes, not long ago he came here without an appointment. Odette was shocked, thinking to herself, perhaps I know the reason why the captain suddenly mentioned my father. Odette quietly left that place, walking in the quiet night, her figure imprinted on the deserted cobblestone road beside the electric tram that was stopping. Her melancholic eyes looked up at the cloudy sky, silently thinking, that is also worth it, because I have also endured my father's reckless actions before, even so. Why did he give me so many things? Her train of thought was not yet over. She remembered the image of a previous meeting, the scene of the two of them preparing luggage next to an antique carriage. She frowned confusedly, then even certainly made an appointment for the next meeting. That is the worst thing. Odette tightened her cloak sleeves, her eyes drooped as if she had exhausted her energy. I don't even have the will to continue this play. But even so, in her heart, Odette could not utter words of resistance or questioning. Even so, I still have nothing to say. When standing alone in front of the door frame, Odette looked out with distant eyes. That man, how can he not show anything to me? At that moment, the sound of her footsteps echoed softly on the wooden floor. A sigh came out. How annoying, it's starting again. Odette walked through the large corridor and met a woman standing with her arms crossed, her eyes seeming to be waiting for something. Odette asked the woman, what's the matter? Before she could respond, from the stairs echoed the annoyed voice of another person. What else? That family is arguing again. Go up and see what's happening. Odette paused, her face showing fatigue and heaviness. Dad and Tira are arguing again, Odette thought to herself, her eyes fixed on the space as if trying to escape reality. Her heart only wanted to run away. At that moment, all responsibility, status, or title became meaningless, that feeling like a rope tied tightly around her breath, making Odette just want to go far, far away from here. At this time, I want to run away, forget that identity, something like a rope tying up her breath, go far away. The woman's call from before cut off this train of thought. Odette, the woman's voice rang out sharply, are you listening to what I'm saying? Odette was startled, running and apologizing, sorry, madam, please forgive me one more time. Reaching the place, Odette suddenly heard a tearing scream. Her face changed, her eyes widened in horror. No way. Before her eyes was a chaotic scene. Tira was struggling with her father Dessen, his hand tightly holding something that looked like a savings box, his face red with anger. Not willing to let go of this, huh? My money, give it back here. In a moment, little Tira cried out, waving her hand in resistance with a pained expression. Her father angrily glared at Tira. Give it here, it's mine. Then he pushed the little girl hard. She shouted in panic, Odette. With eyes as green as the spring and full of horror when seeing the scene before her, Tira suddenly stood up. Her eyes became full of resentment and hatred. Tira raised her hand. She pushed Dessen hard. He staggered backward, then slipped down the stairs. A box fell out, gold coins scattered everywhere. Odette stood frozen, watching everything slow down in her eyes. The light in the faint corridor shone down on the body of the man lying motionless at the foot of the stairs, blood soaking the cold stone floor. Dad. Scene changed to the royal palace. The emperor coldly stood before Bastian, his eyes as sharp as knives, his voice ringing with threat. What the queen said wasn't a lie. As long as I want to, you can't survive leaving this palace. He came closer, whispering, but each word was like a hammer pounding into the mind of the person opposite. In the alleys of the red light district, the body of the hero being found is as easy as turning over your hand. There is nothing difficult. However, Emperor Bergs was not unaware of bestowing a little mercy, but I will reserve leniency to acknowledge that person's achievements. You just need to hold the wedding before the summer festival takes place. Even so, his tone was still cold, without any personal emotion. Although I hope Odette will become your wife, but now I don't care who the object is, even if you run away with your mistress, Countess Lennet, then I will let it pass. He raised his deep blue eyes, looking into the distance, and just maintain the marriage for 2 years, until Isabel returns home to Bellup and gives birth to her first child. Bastian spoke, with difficulty, but your majesty, the date you mentioned, there is less than 2 months left. Emperor Bergs coldly replied, although it's rushed, it's still easier than you dying right now. The emperor ordered, like a god judging fate, immediately get married and show everyone the image of a perfect couple, so that Crown Prince Bellup does not feel any threat. Even if he knows about the relationship between you and Isabel. Bastian still stood still, his eyes unable to hide the struggle. The emperor leaned slightly, looking deeply into those eyes, his voice stern. Why are you showing such an attitude? Didn't you say that you would immediately become someone like what I ordered? Bastian Closet spoke, his voice full of tension and caution. It's not that I meant that, your majesty, it's just. Before his justification could be complete, a hand decisively placed on his shoulder. The emperor looked straight at him, his voice not loud but full of weight. If you live like that for 2 years as promised. Emperor Bergs continued, his eyes strong and steady, I will give you what you want, whether it is a title or the rights that you desire, anything. The emperor declared clearly, this is my order. He looked into Bastian's steadfast eyes, he leaned forward, his tone mixed with a challenge and expectation. So what kind of person is Bastian? Show it to me. Scene changed to another place, a large building with classical architecture and a blue sky, Ras City Hospital. Outside the hospital, Tira was crying, her voice trembling as she asked, Odette, now I have to leave, right? Odette, with a calm appearance, her quiet blue eyes placed her hand on Tira's shoulder, reassuring, listen to your sister, Tira, Dad doesn't remember that. Odette slowly explained, her voice calm, because he was drunk, Dad's memory will probably be vague. Dad thinks that he stumbled and slipped when stepping back. Tira looked up, her eyes red. Yes, sister. Odette gently continued, as if wanting to close the worry in Tira's heart, so you also forget it, that thing was just an unavoidable unfortunate accident. But tears had begun to fall on Tira's face, she trembled, choking, even so, but I am also extremely afraid. Panic invaded her mind. In her panic, she grabbed Odette's hand, sobbing, even if Dad can't remember, but what if someone accuses me? What if someone living in that building saw it? Tira collapsed, hugging her head in despair, her voice shattered with fear. I will go to the police station, maybe I will only be punished with a light sentence if I confess. This makes me scared to death, I will have to go to hell, sister, I made Dad. A firm voice rang out, cutting through Tira's panic, Tira, stay calm, Tira. Odette grasped her younger sister's shoulders, looking straight at her, conveying calmness, listen clearly to your sister. Beller, you are only doing legitimate self-defense. Tira was still not free from the obsession, but her voice softened, mixed with a bit of hope because of Odette's words, sister, although I don't believe in gods. But if there really are gods, then I won't be sent to hell for this, right? Odette looked at Tira with resolute eyes, gently, even if someone has to go to hell, I will go instead of you, you know that? 2 pairs of eyes met, one silent, one still tearful. Odette said softly, like a sincere plea, I don't want even you to suffer unhappiness, Tira, please keep it a secret. Not for you, but for me, I beg you. Tira didn't answer, she lowered her head, a tear silently falling on her cheek. In an instant, she was hugged tightly in Odette's warm embrace. Tira choked, answering, yes. The apology burst out of Tira's lips in sobs, sorry, I'm really sorry, sister. Odette hugged Tira tightly, her eyes gentle and full of determination, if I can fulfill my responsibility to Tira, I am willing to go to hell. Meanwhile, the prominent red carriage rolled through the garden filled with flowers. Inside, Bastian sat leaning back in his seat, his eyes pensive, the time until the summer festival, at most there is only a month and a half left, if I want to organize a wedding. Then at a minimum I must ensure the procedural steps, at least within 3 days, I must resolve who the bride is. He calculated to be able to receive the rights that I desire from the emperor, the price for being bound for 2 years. His eyes looked out the window, where the blue sky swept through the trees, sunlight stretched across the ancient roofs, in fact, it is a transaction with nothing to lose. Anyway, it will be about 2 more years until Sandrine's suitable remarriage time. Bastian got out of the car, walking leisurely, both sides have the same divorce history, at this time, proceeding with marriage is the most reasonable way. Bastian told himself, exactly 2 years in the silent space of the mansion, time seemed to freeze, Bastian had planned ahead, living quietly like a potted plant in the garden. When the time came, he would just disappear with a huge amount of money. Bastian walked on the long carpet, looking cold and confident, in his heart, he knew that pushing was easy, if you paid a generous reward, how many women would be willing? Bastian strode to his room and thought. But then, no matter how much he thought, no matter how hard he tried to find another option, the image of Odette was always the first to appear in his mind, no one else, only her, only Odette. He put his hand on his forehead and thought, why, no matter what I think, does it always turn out that she is the best candidate? A voice called out, pulling him out of his confused thoughts. Lovis, the close servant, appeared with a worried look, Master, are you all right? Bastian looked up, his eyes more determined, there was no more time, even for a moment, it was best to meet her quickly, Lovis, go and pick up Miss Odette to the mansion. Because it's urgent, the sooner the better, Lovis nodded in obedience, yes, master. But before he could leave, Lovis suddenly remembered something, oh right, last night a guest came to see you. Bastian frowned slightly, surprised, so late at night? Lovis respectfully handed over a letter, according to your orders, I kept last night a secret, because the master was away. The person left quickly, but left a letter. Bastian took the letter from Lovis' hand, his eyes gleaming with contemplation, he opened the letter, neat lines of writing appeared before his eyes, I heard about my father's impolite behavior towards. Captain, sincerely send my apologies to you, I guarantee that I will not let you get into trouble because of my father again. Bastian was silent for a moment, a feeling that was hard to describe welled up in his heart, so she finally knew. Lovis gave Bastian another letter suggesting he check it, and this is the letter that Count Trier sent urgently this morning, perhaps you should check it before leaving. Bastian opened the letter Lovis had just handed over. His eyes widened suddenly. He called the butler beside him, Lovis. Bastian held the letter in his hand and said in a calm but somewhat firm voice, no matter what, I will still have to go and meet Miss Odette directly. The letter that Lovis had just given Bastian was from Countess Trier, sent to Captain Closets. The content of the letter that Countess had sent to Bastian was, on behalf of Odette, contact Bastian. Odette is in a difficult situation, she has to leave for a long time. So I am contacting you on her behalf. The scene changed to Descent's hospital room. Odette was silent, her green eyes filled with sadness. Late last night, Duke Descent fell down the stairs and is being treated at the city hospital. With serious injuries, a fractured skull and a broken spine. Duke Descent's face appeared gaunt, his eyes wide open, his head wrapped in bandages. The hospital diagnosed that he would have to live with lower body paralysis for the rest of his life. Morning at the hospital. In the hospital room, gentle sunlight streamed through the window, shining on Descent's motionless body. Odette sat silently beside him. An old hand gently placed on Odette's shoulder, the gentle voice of the Countess rang out, interrupting Odette's heavy thoughts, are you all right? The Countess looked worried and kindly asked Odette, you look like you've been up all night, haven't you? Odette's eyes were heavy with sleep deprivation, her face pale, she replied softly, I'm fine, Countess. Countess Trier looked at her for a while and then said gently, your father's face looks better, I'll watch over him. Go to sleep for a while and then come back, you have to be able to endure it. Odette stood up and slowly walked out into the hospital grounds. She sat silently on a chair in the open blue sky. Odette pondered to herself, so from now on, I have to accept the fate of living and taking care of my father for the rest of my life. Odette collapsed, in pain at the humiliation she experienced. The job she had just found also had to be given up because of this. The tutoring job was hard to find. Hoping to start a new life far away, all of which became meaningless. Odette fell into despair, wishing she could disappear like a water bubble. Suddenly a voice rang out, "I heard about the accident." Bastian appeared. Odette raised her head slightly, her eyes gleaming with contemplation. Bastian said slowly, "It's a pity what happened to the Duke, although it makes the young lady uneasy. But..." Bastian paused for a moment and then continued, "I hope the young lady will give me some time." Bastian handed Odette a document, his voice unchanged. "This is the contract that I drafted about the plan that I presented to you. Please consider it, young lady." Odette's face turned heavy and dark as she read the lines that were no different from cold judgments. "According to the Emperor's orders, I need a wife, maintained for 2 years. I will compensate fully. I think the young lady is suitable. If the young lady agrees, then the wedding will be held at the end of next month." Because of this, now, Odette's face darkened and she questioned Bastian loudly, "Are you planning to buy a wife with money, moreover for 2 years?" Bastian remained calm, his eyes sharp as he spoke and observed Odette in this situation. "This is a mutually supportive contract. The young lady should have a moderate attitude. To put it bluntly, I am proposing a job for the young lady for a period of 2 years here." Odette smiled softly, her lips curved lightly like a cold cut, "So that's how it is." Then Odette sat slumped in the chair, her voice ringing out full of bitterness, "You are so kind." Odette's hand tightened on the contract, her eyes as if frozen. "It turns out that you unexpectedly came to the hospital where my father is lying to directly introduce a job to me." With a calm expression, Bastian said that, "If you want to get married according to the date designated by the Emperor, for me, there is not much time left, although I admit that Odette is the number one choice. I also do not hide the fact that I have other backup plans, although it is true that Miss Odette is the number one choice, but it does not mean that I do not have backup plans. Moreover, this marriage, for Miss Odette, may not be a bad deal." Bastian continued to analyze the situation coldly. "Once you appear, you have to take your father home, taking care of the patient. Obviously the young lady is the one who takes full responsibility. And then you have to move from house to house in the suburbs." Bastian's eyes were calm. He asked a question that made Odette speechless. "Is the young lady planning to sacrifice all of the rest of her life to take care of her father?" Bastian also pointed out that the relationship between her and her father did not seem as deep as outsiders imagined, his voice mixed with a bit of cold sarcasm. "The father-daughter relationship between the two of you does not seem that deep, is my guess not correct?" In Odette's hand at this moment was a written agreement. She looked at it attentively. "To put it seriously, this contract is not a married life, but just living together under the same roof after getting married. The agreement is simple. As long as we play the image of a perfect couple well at official events, apart from that, everyone lives their own lives." Odette thought, her face showing obvious fatigue. "Once I sign here, my father will be able to live the rest of his life in a nursing hospital with state-of-the-art facilities and equipment. Tira will be able to enter a prestigious school and receive a good education. Moreover, there will be a reward sufficient for me to start a new life." Odette's face was pale. Bastian sat down next to her. Odette pondered if she went through married life with this man, for only 2 years, her life could change completely. But she was still a little worried. "But..." Odette spoke up, "After 2 years, when the contract ends, will Captain remarry Countess Lennet?" She confessed, her voice small, that she did not intentionally eavesdrop, but she had gotten lost and accidentally heard the conversation between him and that woman. "I'm sorry, I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but, on the day of the polo match, I got lost while wandering around. I heard the conversation of the two of you." Bastian nodded lightly, his eyes calm and cold. "That's right, that was also when the divorce had been handled smoothly on their side, the first marriage." The scene switched to a large building, where the negotiation had reached the point of delaying the marriage plan, and compensating me with a large sum of money. "It seems that after the transaction with His Majesty, you will receive something great, right?" Bastian replied succinctly, "Yes." Odette slightly pursed her lips. "So that's how it is." Odette sat still, her eyes confused. Bastian's hand gently handed over a fountain pen. Odette's voice rang out, low, full of tension. "Then just one day, time for me to think." But he did not give her a chance to back down. His eyes narrowed slightly, his voice gentle but no less serious rang out, "As I said, for me, there is not much time left. Miss Odette, if you refuse, it means..." Odette's eyes widened, her hand suddenly startled when the pen was handed over again. "He has arranged everything." "No," Odette snatched the pen in a moment of strong emotion. She thought to herself, "All right." Darkness surrounded Odette's thoughts as she picked up the pen. "This is just a contract entirely for the benefit of both parties. There is nothing significantly different from what has happened to me until now." The pen tip trembled on the paper. Odette thought, how will the next 2 years pass? It's still better than missing the opportunity and facing reality. Suddenly the pen in Odette's hand fell. Odette collapsed. Seeing this, Bastien quickly supported her. He let her lean against his chest. Odette's body was limp as if she had no strength left, her eyes closed tightly. Her face pale but peaceful for a moment, her long eyelashes trembled slightly, her lips moved as if wanting to say something, then that would be a better ending than becoming a water bubble and disappearing. Bastien quickly supported Odette. He let her lean against his chest. Odette woke up. She saw Bastien carrying her with a serious expression. He strode quickly carrying her away. Odette stirred slightly in Bastien's arms, but then leaned her head against Bastien's shoulder, her eyes still not open. In her heart, Odette clearly felt every pain spreading throughout her body. From her muscles, from every disjointed bone, her whole body ached, to the point of being unable to push this man away. Bastien still held Odette tightly, his usually cold blue eyes now gleaming with a quiet gentleness. His hand tightened slightly. Bastien carried her to the clinic. "The patient is exhausted, I will go to Dr. Kramer's clinic." The nurse hesitated, stammering before Bastien's decisive gaze, "But the director is treating his usual patients." Bastien interrupted, his voice still calm but unable to be resisted. "Please convey my words to the doctor." His cold but decisive voice rang out, causing everyone in the room to be silent. "The patient is Bastien Closet's fiancé." After that event, the city continued its bustling rhythm of life, the ancient streets shining in the sunlight, carriages passing between luxurious rows of houses, creating a perfect picture of a fresh early morning. In the carriage the Countess was sitting in the seat looking a little tired. She complained in a sigh, "This is the first time in my life that I have had to prepare for such a hasty wedding." Odette, in a gorgeous pale purple dress, smiled slightly. "Thank you for helping me, Countess." The Countess immediately smiled broadly, unable to hide her joy. "There's no need to be so polite, thanks to you, I can enjoy the pleasure of spending money to my heart's content." The Countess said softly, "The captain told me to make you a bride more beautiful and gorgeous than anyone else, so I will try my best to the end." Odette looked at the engagement ring in her hand and thought to herself, in the past month, every day has passed like a war. He said that everything of mine must be expensive and most luxurious. In the past month, every day has passed like a war. He said that everything of mine must be expensive and most luxurious. In his formal uniform, Bastien presented a small velvet box. Inside was a gorgeous ring. He certainly did not have the idea of saving money in preparing for the wedding. "This is the engagement ring, young lady. Please wear it before the official wedding takes place." Odette looked at the ring, frowning slightly. "Isn't it too extravagant? And there isn't much time left until the wedding," Bastien replied, his voice calm. "Of course. It is a luxury item that is not suitable for a marriage time that is less than 1 month away." Not only the ring, but also the dowry and wedding dress were no exception. Everything was luxurious, extravagant and expensive to the point that outsiders had to be amazed. Both the dowry and the wedding dress were no exception, all were the most expensive items in the empire. Even the honeymoon home was a completely newly built villa. It is unknown how splendidly the wedding hall was decorated. Countess Trier sat next to her smiling and commented, "Anyway, your fiancé seems to be much richer than everyone's guesses." Odette could only smile awkwardly in response, her eyes full of thoughts. "Although time is limited, but anyway, the wedding is still being prepared smoothly. Dad has been transferred to a nursing hospital with advanced equipment in the Raz suburb. Tira will soon move to a prestigious girls' school in Karlsvar." Odette stood by the window, her eyes looking distantly towards the horizon. From now on, after the wedding ends, she will leave her family. Really, she will be alone. "From now on, a few days after the wedding ceremony is held, I will leave my family and truly be alone." An unexpected voice rang out with anger. "Bastien." Jeff Closets was a little surprised mixed with panic when standing in front of Bastien's summer villa. What the hell has he been doing all this time? Meanwhile, Franz also did not hide his anger, gritting his teeth and thinking to himself, "That crazy bastard, I heard that the newlywed couple will spend time in the newly built summer villa. In front of them was a magnificent villa, the words closets matter. And opposite it was a construction no less massive, Bastian's summer mansion, which had been built with the same architecture. Even the location was blatantly opposite. Before the confusion and skepticism of the three, Bastian appeared. It seems I haven't told you before, have I? Bastian, with a calm and confident look, looked around and said, although this is the place where I was abandoned and had to endure many deprivations, but perhaps in some corner of my mind there is still lingering nostalgia. Jeff and Countess closets in surprise and wariness, their faces tense as they heard Bastian say, it seems to be thanks to experiencing such a beautiful childhood. What do you two think? Franz, angry but still trying to keep calm, thought to himself, even if he's crazy, he's only a little crazy. What the hell has he done to mobilize such a huge source of funds? I heard that the junk shop business has declined significantly in the last years of his grandfather's life. Receiving an inheritance so huge that he could build such a kongoy, what the hell does he need to persevere and strive to become a soldier for? With a look of integrity and full of determination, Bastian said, the image of the closet's family reflects and emulates each other, living like a reflecting mirror. I hope to become a typical model of the whole city. Bastian stopped, his eyes gleaming with coldness, speaking clearly each word as much as possible. Then approached Jeff, his eyes sharp, his lips slightly curled up as if mocking. Just consider it as the desire of a son to emulate his father. The blue sky stretched above the magnificent castle. Bastian, with calm but cold steps, left the grand hall without looking back. The sound of high heels hitting the stone floor rang out sharply. She had followed him. Claire stood in front of him, her eyes gleaming with the anger that had been suppressed for days. Bastian, don't you have a bit of guilt towards me? How can you get married without discussing it with me? Bastian stopped, tilted his head towards Claire, his eyes still calm as always. Bastian replied, his voice calm to the point of being cruel, I did not intend to send an invitation to the Countess. Claire gritted her teeth, remembering what Bastian had said before. Didn't you say you were busy preparing for the wedding so you couldn't meet me? Bastian replied. Regarding this issue, I have discussed it with your father. The statement made Claire's heart feel squeezed. Claire's eyes widened, not hiding her shock when remembering what her father had said. If Bastian gets a title, then the price of this marriage, even if there is a divorce afterwards, is not a problem. He is willing to ignore it. Claire bowed her head, her lips trembling. You, because of my father, not me. Then she laughed softly, a smile full of bitterness. Oh no, I forgot, you love the money and possessions of my father. Bastian did not deny it. He looked straight at Claire and said, as if stating an obvious thing, you know it well, I need the status and financial foundation that your father has. And your father wants my money. Claire paused, looked up at Bastian, her eyes gleaming with bewilderment. The remaining fragments of hope in her began to crack, because both sides understand each other's pursuit. So we have cooperated until now. Claire's lips moved, as if not daring to utter the words she was thinking. Bastian, do you mean? Lightly the light shone through the trees when Bastian's cold voice rang out, cutting through the tense silence. Therefore, I intend to remarry you once the transaction with the Emperor ends. Because the benefit that I need is still on Miss Lavier's person. Claire's crimson eyes widened, full of surprise and pain. For a moment, her face turned pale as she continued to hear. However, if you are not interested, I will consider finding candidate number 2. In the next 2 years, this is the relationship between us. As if having just received an invisible stab, the corners of Claire's eyes began to blur. Bastian's voice was still calm, not carrying a trace of pity. If you completely cannot accept it, I will find another object to remarry. Not giving Claire a chance to answer, he turned his back and left, leaving her standing silently in the darkness. The ceremony is about to begin, so I cannot see you off, Countess. Outside, the wedding scene was ready, brilliant flowers blooming in the sunlight, white doves flying in the air as if blessing a sacred event. Odette appeared, wearing a pure white dress, embroidered with exquisite lace. In her hand was a bouquet of brilliant wedding flowers, but her eyes carried a deep sadness, hard to hide. Together with Bastian walking to the wedding hall, the two stood facing the officiant. From behind, their backs appeared like a perfect couple in the gentle light that filled everything. He gently lifted the veil covering Odette's face, his eyes looking at her calmly. As for her, those clear eyes gleamed with quiet acceptance, but no one knew if there was anything else hidden in them than sadness and emptiness. She looked at him, pursing her lips slightly. She looked beautiful like a vivid painting, but all was just a facade for a heart that was breaking because of the truth behind this marriage. Odette looked at Bastian and thought, that day, I was almost sold off as gambling money at the casino. now I am marrying the man who was once the owner of that bet. Odette tried to convince herself that the marriage contract was exactly 2 years, let's just think about it that way. They exchanged a kiss in the brilliant wedding. In that moment, as they stood next to each other amidst the magnificent scene of the wedding, she said to herself, after that for sure, I will be able to live a new life. Afternoon gradually turned to dusk. Bastian asked Odette, also in a voice more trim and gentle than ever, is the young lady satisfied? The sunset cast a long shadow on the balcony. Odette looked at Bastian attentively. What do you want to talk about, Captain? Then Bastian looked at Odette, half seriously, half teasingly. Call me Bastian. She paused slightly, then gently bowed her head, saying, I'm sorry, Bastian, because I'm still not used to it. Bastian turned back, his voice calm but full of meaning. I want to ask, how does the young lady feel about the house where she will be attached for the next 2 years? Odette confusedly asked. You said 2 years, is it possible that we will continue to stay in this mansion since this summer? Bastian gently explained, perhaps it will be like that because currently our headquarters has moved back to this place. He glanced at her for a moment, then continued. However, in the coming time, the young lady will be here alone. Odette looked up, slightly surprised. Bastian continued, his voice still calm but no less serious, because I still have some things to deal with in Raz, so I will come back here on the weekend only. Listening to that, Odette was confused for a moment. She thought to herself, if that's how it is, in the coming time, I will only meet Bastian on the weekend. Immediately, she regained her spirit and gave a decisive smile, her eyes sparkling with determination. I will not do anything to make you worry. If there is anything else to note, please tell me. Bastian was slightly surprised, his eyes flickering slightly at that strange enthusiasm. He wondered, is she that happy? But then he only gently instructed, just don't do anything to make them suspicious. Otherwise the young lady can do anything she wants. He paused for a moment, then continued, just as long as the young lady does not bring her relatives home, and my relatives are the same. Odette paused slightly, only managing to utter a word as she looked at him. She remembered what Countess Trier had said, her eyes directed towards the wide sky. Countess Trier had said like that, the current mansion of my father and son are exactly the same. Odette turned to ask softly, are you really okay? Then explained further, I mean, this mansion is exactly the same as your father's house. Bastian only smiled vaguely, his lips slightly pursed. Wait and see, anyway this is not a pastime. But then, in a scene full of red blood and gloom, Bastian exclaimed coldly, his eyes as sharp as a knife, of course one side must be crushed. Odette was stunned by Bastian's attitude. A gentle breeze swept past, the sunset painting the sky behind Odette gold. Odette's clear blue eyes widened, her gaze fixed forward, speechless at what she had just witnessed. Inside the glass window, whispers began to ring out, like small knives weaving in the air. A tall man's silhouette appeared outside the door. A gentle but resolute hand placed on Odette's waist, a familiar voice rang out from behind her, it seems the party has begun. Odette turned around, looking up at the man who had just arrived. Bastian was in front of her, his face calm and stern. He said gently, reaching out to hug her naturally as if it were all real. Smile, Odette. They walked inside together. Bastian said, his voice light but full of hidden meaning. Shouldn't we show them the image of a happy couple until the end of the ceremony? He pulled her hand lightly, preparing to step forward. Then let's go now, Odette called softly, stopping his steps. Wait, Bastian, can you answer me one more thing? She paused for a moment, looking straight at him. If we have 2 years of peace without any noise, then, what will be our reason for divorce at that time? Bastian narrowed his eyes slightly when he heard her say that. Bastian lowered his head slightly, his sharp eyes narrowed slightly, looking attentively at the face of the woman in front of him. What reason does the young lady want? She froze, her eyes widened in confusion as she heard the question from the man in front of her repeating in her head. Her lips moved but hesitated, not yet saying anything. Decide for myself? She uttered softly, her eyes still not leaving him. There was something very fragile in that voice, as if she did not dare to believe in the reality that was taking place. That matter. The scene gradually shifted to a brilliant sunset, the ancient palace shining in a soft orange hue. A voice rang out, as if to dispel the tense atmosphere, that's enough. Let's consider it carefully later. A gentle hand stroked her long, silky hair. That gentle gesture was like part of a familiar preparatory ritual. Amidst the luxurious and brilliant scene, the girl in the emerald green evening gown was having her hair and clothes adjusted by 2 maids, her face calm, her eyes slightly closed as if she was meditating. However, behind her, in the pale yellow light of the room, whispers had begun to spread. The 2 maids stood close to each other, exchanging discreet glances mixed with curiosity. She still maintained her composure, but in her mind, she couldn't help but think of what had just happened. As soon as the marriage was announced, she thought to herself. Her eyes flashing coldness, they have attached a shameful label to me. Once again, whispers reached her ears. Odette calmly and composedly asked them, which side have you bet on, son or daughter? The girl turned around, facing them, her voice gentle but no less sharp. I am talking about the gender of the child that everyone is discussing will be born this winter. She stepped forward, her eyes full of implication. According to what I've heard, the advantage is tilting towards the opinion that it will be a son, right? While everyone had not yet had time to react, the girl continued to think. They say I am the woman who has seized Bastian closets with the reason of being pregnant. Suddenly, one of the maids shouted, Madam, madam. The girl stopped, looking towards the person who had called, her voice still calm, but no less sharp. If my question has confused everyone, then I apologize. Molly hurriedly shook her head, her face flushed with embarrassment. No, that's not it. She smiled gently, and then spoke. Everyone doesn't seem to have any intention of hiding, so I thought it would be okay to participate in a few conversations. I apologize if everyone thinks my thoughts are shallow. Thinking to herself, she told herself that she shouldn't pay too much attention to baseless rumors. I think it's not necessary to pay too much attention to such rumors. Anyway, as time passes, it will naturally be clarified. Her eyes darkened, solemnly saying, however, only with the assumption that a suitable limit of respect is maintained, but if sharing the story with me is difficult, then you should cherish it and not let it reach my ears, wouldn't it be better? The statement caused everyone around her to freeze, including a girl who blushed and bowed her head, avoiding direct eye contact. How does the head maid feel? If she didn't hear it, then it can be considered that nothing happened, then it will also be considered that I didn't make a mistake. Dora replied with experience and composure. The head maid Dora nodded in agreement. The madam's thoughts are correct, she replied softly, her eyes gleaming with weariness and caution. I hope so. She added, sincerely thanking her for understanding. In the future, I will be careful not to make such mistakes. In her heart, she secretly hoped that during the 2 years of living as husband and wife, she would not waste unnecessary feelings. Late that night, the night sky fell. A maid reported back. The master said that sending the guests away might take a little time. Dora asked softly, then do you need anything else, madam? She shook her head, gratefully. It's okay, you've worked hard, Dora. With that, she turned her back and walked away. The two went to a large room. The door was opened, revealing a luxurious space. She entered, her eyes scanned around the room that was decorated magnificently and expensively. The bedroom is decorated with magnificent and expensive furniture. She froze, standing in that luxurious space. So this is where I will live in the future. Sitting on the edge of the bed, the soft pajamas covered her fragile body. She thought to herself, if I saw my appearance at this moment, I wonder what kind of expression my mother would have. The door of the room suddenly opened. Odette thought to herself, the head maid is here again. I said that I didn't need anything anymore. The person who came was Bastian. Odette surprisingly widened her eyes. Bastian. She was a little flustered and said loudly, why are you here? Bastian calmly replied, is there a problem with me entering my bedroom? Odette surprisingly wondered why he was here. Wasn't it clearly stipulated in the contract that we would only act as husband and wife at public events? Bastian sighed. It seems like there's been some misunderstanding. Odette still said loudly, I thought that the bedroom was obviously prepared separately. She glared at him angrily. Is it only the first day and you're planning to break the contract, Bastian? Bastian frowned. Suddenly he didn't say anything. He approached Odette. He raised his hand to pull her. Now. Bastian hugged Odette tightly in his arms. Odette didn't have time to react. Now she was so surprised that she couldn't move. What does he want to do? Odette looked up at Bastian in front of her, her eyes full of doubt and amazement. Bastian didn't say anything, just gently put his hand on her waist. Then silently turned away. His hand reached out, opened the door, leaving a short sentence, follow me. Odette raised her head and looked around, her eyes not hiding her suspicion. Why is there a secret tunnel in the room? They stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. Bastian opened it, and said, this is the bedroom, where the young lady will rest. Before Odette could react, she saw the magnificent interior in front of her. A large bed with a pure white curtain appeared. While she was still in shock, Bastian continued. His voice still calm, perhaps the close servants think that on the first night, we will obviously share the bed with each other. Odette was stunned, her face flushed, in her head only echoed an exclamation mark. Recalling, she remembered the words of a servant just now, the master said that sending the guests away might take a little time, and after that was a meaningful sentence because of that. The head maid. Bastian turned to Odette, his expression more serious. I can't reveal the entire contract to the close servants. I think the young lady will understand. Odette nodded slightly, responding with a gentle voice, yes, Captain. Bastian looked at Odette, briefly ordered name. Odette startled, her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment and tension, then responded quietly, yes, Bastian. He nodded, his sharp eyes glanced at her. Then for the public events later, I will look forward to the young lady's acting image of a perfect mistress, Odette. The door slammed shut, leaving Odette alone standing in the room. Bastian stopped outside, leaning against the door that had just been closed. A hint of confusion appeared in his eyes, perhaps also hesitation flashed across his eyes as he bowed his head to look at the floor. His eyes darkened, as deep as hiding an emotion that he himself did not know. After a while, he turned and walked away, leaving behind a heavy silence in the room. The scene shifted to the location of a financial group that had stirred up the continent in an instant, under the management of a mysterious billionaire, located in the central district of Raz. The financial group that was once known in an instant by the management of a billionaire on the continent. In a luxurious office, amidst the sunlight shining in from the large glass window, a man stood in front of the report table at the bottom of the page. We will report in writing. The identity of the billionaire emerged like a deity of the imperial financial world, which was only rumored. With an expression of calm mixed with authority, Bastian coldly said, no need for the plans that have been decided in advance, just proceed according to the assessment of the board of directors. Is the figure that no one can expect. The light shone down on Bastian's shoulders, highlighting his sharp face. A person that no one could guess, Thomas Miller, the company's CEO, also Bastian's advisor. Bowed slightly, his voice full of respect but not hiding his curiosity. But young master, can I ask the reason why you revealed yourself earlier than expected? Thomas Miller, the company's CEO, Bastian's advisor. Leaning back, folding his arms across his chest with a nonchalant look, Bastian said in a deep voice, originally, according to the plan, I would reveal myself after marrying Lavier. He raised his head, his eyes sharp as if looking further than what was in front of him, but first, temporarily consider it because of the transaction that the emperor proposed. If we don't want to waste this opportunity, we need to be perfectly prepared. Thomas was slightly touched, his eyes filled with tears as he recalled, the time we were treated no differently than a loan company, just like the other day. He bowed respectfully, his eyes full of faith as he looked at Bastian in front of him. The matter of building an upright company, receiving the recognition of the world, is the long-standing wish of your grandparents. They will be extremely proud of you. Bastian softened his voice, still maintaining his composure, stabilizing the company to stand firm in the market. The CEO's contribution is very great, but the road to be taken is still very far. Thomas bowed slightly, yes, young master. The light of dawn shone through the large glass window, enveloping the space. A silent thought rang out, as the crystallization of strategic judgment and harsh reality. The social status of aristocratic families that cannot utilize capital sources is declining sharply. The era of people enjoying family glory by blood will end. If so, then what is common in the new era, only the new can understand and be seen. Bastian stood behind the window, his eyes firmly directed towards the horizon that was shining brightly. The power to create the king of the new era will surely be there. At the summer villa, the maids were busy preparing. The head maid Dola respectfully bowed her head and asked Odette, are there any changes to the dinner party menu and the seating arrangement of the guests? Please check one last time, madam. Odette looked at the list that the head maid gave her, thinking, since the day of the wedding, every day has been constantly receiving invitations to parties, as well as managing the servants and the economic spending in the house. Compared to what I thought, there are too many things that the mistress has to solve. Although she has gradually become accustomed to this rhythm of life, Odette still can't help but feel overwhelmed. At times, she calmly listened to the butler present the final details of the dinner party tonight, nodded lightly, confirmed the instructions and gave them the paper clearly stating the arrangement. She said softly, please proceed according to this. Yes, madam. Odette looked out the window and discovered that Bastian had returned. Recently, I have been so busy every day that I don't know how time has passed. Whenever I think of the 2-year contract period, the fact that time is passing so quickly can also be considered lucky. Footsteps echoed on the marble floor of the great hall. The light of the setting sun shone through the large window, creating gentle streaks of light. Odette, in her elegant blue-purple dress, walked between 2 rows of servants bowing their heads. Near the entrance, she stopped, because she had recognized the man standing there. Bastion, she thought to herself, but it also means that the moment when Bastion returns to Arden every weekend has come as quickly as that. Odette stepped forward to greet Bastion, giving a gentle smile, her eyes as if carrying a special light. Welcome back, I have missed you very much, Bastion. He didn't say anything, just looked at her, then came closer, while she still stood still in the red carpet that stretched throughout the great hall. Bastion gently grasped Odette's hand, his eyes silently looking deeply into her eyes. His voice was low, sincere. All week, I have only been thinking about you. I hope you have the same thoughts as me. Odette was slightly stunned, her eyes widened, then awkwardly smiled. Of course, of course. Without any more words, Bastion leaned down, giving her a gentle but emotional kiss. She gently closed her eyes, her confused heart beating fast in her chest. After a while, he gently took her hand, leading her away from the magnificent party hall. Come, I have something to tell you. They walked side by side, leaving the sight of everyone, gradually going up the large staircase leading to the private area of the mansion. The servants standing nearby watched with interest. One servant whispered, he just got back, he wants to be alone with each other. The other servant replied, her eyes shining with admiration, what else, after all? They are newlyweds, they must have missed each other so much. Odette followed Bastion to the hallway behind the area. When the two had disappeared from prying eyes, she suddenly stopped and said softly but firmly, now let go, Bastion, there are no eyes watching here anymore. His voice rang out, full of sarcasm and disappointment, is this what you call trying your best? Odette was stunned, looking at him, huh? Bastion attentively looked at Odette, his eyes stopping at the simple ivy necklace, among the countless jewelries that I gave the madam, the only thing that the young lady likes. Could it be just that necklace? Odette gently touched the necklace, her eyes not looking directly at Bastion. Her beautiful face still maintained its composure when she gently said, I think it's perfect to attend the dinner party. The light blue dress with delicate rose patterns hugged Odette's slender figure. She gently explained further, because this dress is not suitable for extravagant jewelry. Bastion's blue eyes looked at Odette suspiciously. Bastion's handsome face showed displeasure. He asked, could it be that the young lady doesn't know who the guests are at tonight's party? So she said those words? Bastion angrily said, largely those who witnessed the entire event at the casino. Bastion felt angry when Odette did that. They are my colleagues at the officer academy. Then Bastion took Odette's hand, his voice lowered, no longer as angry as before. How has the situation of the girl who was sold by her father changed compared to now? The young lady must look carefully. Bastion's voice became more serious. He looked straight at Odette and seriously said, Odette, remember, young lady, now, is my wife. Images of the secret bedroom that Bastion had added appeared. Bastion's bedroom, secret tunnel, Odette's bedroom. Bastion thought to himself, regardless of the nature of this marriage, this woman is still my wife. Odette with black hair and blue eyes looked at Bastion. Bastion gently said to her, Madam just needs to do as I say. He will make Odette more gorgeous, so in the next 2 years, he will transform her into the most beautiful and gorgeous woman in this world. Bastion's voice was a little softer but still very cold. That is our contract, young lady, don't forget. A chilling scene appeared. It was like two parallel worlds. The woman in the dress standing alone on top, and below was the image of the man possessing her, making it impossible for anyone to find the traces of the beggar princess who was once despised on his wife. The man wearing black gloves, his collar had a precious brooch. He hesitated to speak. That was Lucas von Ewald. He was stammering to explain to Bastion, I can only apologize for not being able to notify you in advance, Bastion. Anyway, today I have to endure it because her mother is sick. It's impossible to come alone while the invitation says to come together with your lover, right? Lucas smiled as if to ease the atmosphere, just when Sandrine said she had no appointment today, so, I thought this was a coincidence. This radiant red-haired girl is Sandrine den Lavier. She smiled brightly and asked, I'm sitting in place of Lucas' fiancé, is there no problem? Bastion sighed. Then he replied to Sandrine, of course. Odette appeared and gently nodded, maintaining the composure of a noble lady. It's a pleasure, Countess Lennet. Sandrine widened her eyes when she saw Odette. She couldn't believe her eyes when she saw Odette dressed so magnificently. She thought to herself when she saw Odette wearing a precious necklace, anyway, even if Bastion is not a stingy man, but that jade necklace, isn't it too gorgeous? Sandrine still couldn't believe her eyes. She glared at Odette intently, unable to believe, just a few months ago, she was still a daughter who was treated like a beggar. Sandrine still wondered in her heart. She began to think about Odette's demands. Could it be that she demanded it? Then her eyes darkened with jealousy and anger. She was jealous for no reason. Indeed, a beautiful woman is the way to open the purse of a rich man, but Bastian is not the type of person to fall for such a shallow trick. In the evening, at the magnificent and luxurious summer villa, everyone gathered at the dining table, all eyes still unanimously directed towards Odette with a surprise that was hard to hide, smiling and saying, "She has become more beautiful than ever." Madame Closets, having such a beautiful woman, it seems Bastian is really lucky. Odette smiled, politely responding, while in her heart she thought to herself, I was a little worried, but luckily everyone showed goodwill. As the conversation ended, a servant quietly approached Bastian. The servant bowed his head low, said softly, "Sorry to bother you, master, there is a phone call looking for you because there is urgent work." Bastian nodded, his eyes glanced at Odette once before turning. Ari watched Bastian's back as he walked away. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. Something vague that Odette couldn't name was gradually seeping into the atmosphere around her. The eyes, the greetings that initially maintained a social appearance, now seemed to be covered with a thin layer of ridicule and scrutiny. There was something, the atmosphere seemed different from before. Ari Faber turned to look at Odette, smiling meaningfully and then speaking, "I heard that Duke Dessen was seriously injured. How is his health recently?" Odette unconsciously tightened her hand under the hem of her dress. That question seemed to be a simple concern but pierced through the mask of composure that she had painstakingly maintained from the beginning of the party. She heard her own heart beat faster in her chest. Odette surprisingly thought to herself, why suddenly, but she still calmly replied, Ari's movements are difficult, but his health has recovered a lot, thank you for your concern. Suddenly he laughed mockingly. Seeing that, Odette surprisingly widened her eyes. Ari tilted her head, her eyes as if swirling into every reaction of hers. That's good news, isn't it? The tone of praise and sarcasm made Odette feel as if she was being suffocated by humiliation. She didn't need to hear clearly what that night was, because her own mind had never let go of that memory, the night that her father gambled away his daughter's fate to exchange for a vague agreement with the most powerful force in the empire, and she, from a person who was sold off, now stood here, in a luxurious evening gown, becoming the wife of one of the most noble men. Wasn't it thanks to Duke Dessen, who had done great things on that night, if the madam can enjoy the luxury as it is now? Ari still spoke and laughed softly. A father who brought such a great gift to his daughter, of course he must be qualified to live long. Odette pursed her lips. Those words did not carry obvious malice, but they were poured out like poison mixed with honey. She felt every nerve in her body tense, trying to keep the expression on her face still a gentle smile. Lucas, seeing that, hurriedly stopped Ari. That's enough, Ari. Hi. Lucas thought to himself, Sandrine is here, if that matter is revealed. But the silence that they intended to maintain could not last long. Sandrine smiled, her voice full of curiosity. It seems that something interesting happened that night, right? Then Sandrine turned to Ari, smiling and urging, don't keep it to yourself, tell everyone to listen together, okay? Odette's expression turned colder by a few points. Odette stood there, in the vortex of gazes and whispers, like a dancer forced to continue dancing in the middle of the stage, even though the music had turned into a tragic melody. She knew that they were laughing at the scars that she never wanted anyone to see, the things that she had buried deep under the shell of a perfect noble madam. But her eyes did not waver. No one was allowed to see her weakness. His gaze swept across like a thin blade gliding on skin, cold and full of intention. Odette felt very clearly that he was despising her. He did not need to hide that, and even more, he wanted to witness her panic, confusion, frantically trying to hide that shameful night that everyone already knew clearly. In that short moment, Odette understood that silence would only make her weaker. There was no other way. She had to open the trunk of the past with her own hands that others intended to open as an entertainment. She thought to herself, he is despising me, he must want to see me in a confused state because I want to hide the event of that night here. After a moment of silence, then she looked straight at the people who were half curious, half gleefully waiting. Without avoiding anything, she said, my father used to participate in illegal gambling. That confession fell like a bell ringing in the middle of the party. No one interrupted, no one dared to laugh. Every gaze gradually turned into confusion, and he had inadvertently bet his daughter. Instead of the insufficient bet money, of course the interested officers also participated in it. She did not avoid anything, she did not excuse, she was just telling the truth, what they originally intended to use as a weapon to fight against her. Odette's voice at this moment was not only defense. but a declaration, self-ownership, an affirmation that she was not a puppet for people to pull the strings to make fun of, and I met my husband for the first time there. As well as the officers who were present here, Bastian was the one who won that bet. He returned me safely like the way he deserved to be an honorable soldier. She emphasized, her eyes swept across each face. Of course, this matter also received the agreement from the other officers. Even now, I am still extremely grateful for the kindness and concern that you gave me on that day. Being given a surprise by Odette, Ari's mouth was agape, unable to say anything more. A heavy silence enveloped a man trying to squeeze out an awkward laugh. He opened his eyes wide in surprise. Look at this, I didn't expect to make a preemptive strike. If so, then what else do I have to say? Sandrine sneered, her voice admiring. It's too romantic, right? Surely that was the first meeting and falling in love. Then suddenly she changed her attitude, her words as sharp as knives. But if someone else won the bet on that night, surely the name of this Madame Closets would have changed, right? Odette did not answer. She did not need to answer. Her composure together with daring to face and speak the truth with her own voice was already the perfect answer. Sandrine still spoke sarcastically. Isn't that so, Madame Closets? Odette didn't say anything, just quietly looked at her. She looked at Odette and began to assess her with her sharp eyes. At first glance she seems noble, but she acts too calmly. She kept staring at Odette, assessing with arrogance as if she was very good. The way she tries her best to hide it means that she has been greatly hurt. Now, let's see how you respond. Odette pursed her lips. She felt her heart skip a beat, but not because of fear, but because the anger was rising like a tide. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could utter a word, a deep, decisive voice rang out, interrupting her. But this time, it was not an insult, it was Bastian. It's a pity that perhaps such a situation will not happen. He stepped forward from behind Odette, his cold eyes swept over the group of people who were trying to dig up his wife's past. Bastian's words made Sandrine feel like lightning struck between the party. Not because of possessiveness, but because of clarity. Bastian did not deny the past, he did not explain, but extinguished all the gossip with an attitude that could not be shaken. Even if someone else had won, the result would be the same. I would still have snatched this girl. Sandrine was startled by Bastian. He looked down at the woman sitting next to him, his eyes softened and he gently kissed her lips. Right, Odette? Bastian leaned down and kissed her gently for a moment. Sandrine was so shocked that she gaped her mouth. What the hell? Bastian left Odette's lips. Ari, seeing that, burst out laughing, showing pleasure. Indeed, newlyweds are really nice, right? It's too romantic, Captain. Bastian didn't say anything and silently sat down in his seat. Odette's cheeks were flushed red. Sandrine was facing her, glaring angrily when Bastian kissed her. She thought to herself in her heart, guessing, that woman is despising me. Maybe she already knows that I am a contract wife for only 2 years. Bastian suddenly grabbed Odette's hand under the table. He was still calmly talking to the people around while Odette was surprised by his action. You must be sad that the honeymoon house is far from Raz, right? This is a happy time too. Because she likes a quiet place, that's why we decided that. Odette suddenly withdrew her hand. It's convenient for me to come and go frequently, so it's okay. When she heard Bastian say that, his friends couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh my, a lovesick fool here?" But it was quickly grabbed by Bastian. Odette's eyes softened, her cheeks became flushed. Sandrine was still glaring at Odette with hatred. Odette felt that she was being treated no differently than a mistress of Bastian in front of the man's wife. I am being treated like the husband's mistress. But Bastian didn't let her feel that way. He made her feel that she was the legal wife, and yet this man forced her to be upright. Odette exclaimed, "It turns out that I really got involved in an abnormal marriage." Odette walked slowly behind Sandrine, talking while keeping a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you for personally leading the way for me, madam." Sandrine turned her head, her lips slightly pursed. Compared to the boring tea ceremony, I want to visit the house more. She glanced at every corner of the wall, every piece of furniture that was not yet complete. Then she spoke as if she was commenting on an exhibit. However, there are still quite a few empty parts that need the hand of the mistress, right? Odette maintained her composure, responding gently in the guise of a real mistress. Yes, the interior decoration is not yet complete. As Sandrine heard Odette's explanation, her hand automatically opened the door of the room. The interior of this villa is almost empty, only the building is completed. She just rushed straight into the room without asking anyone's permission. Odette felt helpless at Sandrine's actions. She didn't ask permission, but just entered as she pleased. Odette sighed softly and then followed into the room. Sandrine looked around the room, the discerning eyes of someone who was used to living among silk and satin immediately priced every detail. She didn't bother to hide her disdain. The cold assessment was evident in every gesture, every glance. Then, with a tone no different from the homeowner, she began to speak. I don't like the popular painting style recently. That sentence was not aimed at any specific painting, but at the entire room and at Odette, who was mainly responsible for the decoration, because things that are too vague are not my taste. I mean the huge paintings, which make me uncomfortable, so bright landscape paintings would be better. She didn't need to pretend to be roundabout. The carefully chosen words were like arrows wrapped in velvet, both gentle and aimed straight at the opponent's heart. There, Sandrine was not only talking about aesthetics but also implying Odette's shallowness and lack of sophistication, and Odette understood that, before Odette could respond. Sandrine continued, as if she was giving orders to a maid rather than chatting with the mistress of the villa. Above the fireplace wall, decorate me a mirror instead of paintings. Remember to put the foliage lamps and clock on the fireplace mantel. Every word, every sentence was arrogantly polite. She said decorate for me, put for me, as if this villa was hers, as if the woman standing in front of Odette was just someone temporarily borrowing. The title of Madame Closets, the things of Burke. After all, my aesthetic about beauty is limited. A cleverly sarcastic sentence. Sandrine didn't need to scream at Odette that she didn't have any aesthetic sense. She just needed to show pity. That pity was the fatal blow. She has lived in Philia for quite a long time, so she understands what I mean, right? The room became quieter. The last question was like a trap. Not answering would be impolite. Answering would be like admitting that she was under command. Odette could see clearly. Sandrine was trying to draw the line between them, clearly defining who was above and who was below, and she was not the person willing to stand below. Odette took a deep breath. In a moment, she clearly heard her heartbeat slowly but tightly like a string. For the past few days, she had gradually become accustomed to the new role of madam, a mistress, and the wife on paper of a man she didn't love. She had taught herself to be calm, to be patient, but that did not mean that she would bow her head. She raised her head, her eyes no longer avoiding but facing Sandrine directly, her voice calm but firm, each word as sharp as a knife. Please maintain the etiquette of a guest, Countess. The space in the room seemed to freeze. No extra words, no loud voices, but everyone knew this was a clear counterattack. Sandrine's first attack had failed to make Odette waver. On the contrary, it only made her realize something more deeply, that this house, this marriage, and even the title that she was wearing were all battlefields she was forced to fight to survive. Sandrine was silent. For a moment, her face slightly diverted, but then she regained her soft smile, a smile that was not real. Two women, in the same room, continued the war without smoke, where the winner was not determined by blood, but by will and honor. Odette stood motionless, her eyes still maintaining her composure, but inside her heart, violent waves were rippling. She clearly felt each of Sandrine's words like small, sharp, and well-aimed poison needles. On the surface, that woman still maintained an elegant appearance, speaking moderately, even calling her Madame Closets. But now, when only the two of them were left, the true face gradually revealed itself, sharp, contemptuous, and full of calculations. In front of other people, I will do that, because it would be difficult if it made Bastian lose face because of you. The opening was an uncompromising head-on blow. She didn't need to use overly harsh words, just bring Bastian in the middle, posing the opposition between saving face and what was not worth saving. Face was enough to tell Odette where she stood in this chess game, but in a place where there are only the two of us, of course the story will be different. Odette did not answer. She still maintained the calmness like the surface of a frozen lake, but it was that silence that made Sandrine even more complacent. I'm not stupid enough to maintain etiquette. With a 2-year rental wife, does she know everything? She smiled, a chilling smile, not at all hiding the contempt that was rising like a tide. Odette felt a strong beat in her chest, as if her heart had been touched in the most vulnerable part. She knew clearly that this marriage was fake, a contract, but hearing an outsider repeat that, naked and intentional, made the feeling of being humiliated ignite. What? That look full of surprise. You didn't think that the contract was only a secret between the two of you, between you and Bastian, did you? Sandrine laughed mockingly at Odette. It seems that's true. It's also possible to fantasize that the relationship will be more special if you do your duty as a wife well, right? A malicious sarcasm. Sandrine was not only attacking the husband-wife relationship between Odette and Bastian, she was taking away the only belief that Odette still kept for herself. Even if it was the most fragile, that if she lived properly, doing her assigned role well, then she could at least receive some respect. But no, with Sandrine, that was just an illusion, and she wanted Odette to realize that, right here Bastian is of course taking advantage of you. Moreover, for young men, it's normal to have cheerful and affectionate actions. This time Odette felt something throb in her chest, a simmering humiliation not because of being criticized, but because she knew that she had no way to refute it. Those words could be true, she didn't know what Bastian thought, she only knew that he was cold, distant, and every action was calculated like a political chess game. And in that chess game, she, a girl who had been gambled away like a commodity, was just a pawn. But Odette, I just mean to say, just in case. Sandrine shrugged, her eyes brazen, her voice lowered, deeper, more poisonous. You better not have the thought of getting pregnant and sitting in my place, because I can only accept enduring you alone. In the evening when the guests had all left, Odette sat in her bedroom. She was combing her hair. Anyway, in 2 years, this villa will belong to Sandrine. Odette put down the comb and thought to herself, the request to decorate according to her personal preferences is not too unreasonable. If I didn't know this situation, then I would think that her threats were rude, but Odette thought to herself, trying to find a reason to reassure herself in a context that was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. If an outsider didn't know the current situation, perhaps they would think that Sandrine's orders, corrections, and even criticisms of her were completely normal, a guest of status making suggestions, no more. But the reality is that things are not so simple. The atmosphere in the villa is colder than ever, even though the sunlight still pours in like honey through the window. Odette stood there, in the empty room like a soulless box, listening to each sarcastic word that was cleverly hidden in the name of suggestion, and clearly feeling that she was no different from a hated third party. She was not a mistress. She had never intended to be that, but the way Sandrine looked at her, full of disdain, full of contempt, had defaulted to assigning her a role that she had not chosen. And the most painful thing was, in this story, Odette didn't have a voice. She was a wife but didn't have the right to own the home. She lived in the villa that was called a home, but all the furniture, colors, every painting on the wall didn't belong to her. She stood there, like a shadow pushed into someone else's world, no matter what she explained. To her, she was just like a mistress. Odette drew a bitter conclusion, and what was sad was, no matter how well she lived, how well she maintained etiquette, to Sandrine, she was still just an obstacle, a person who was occupying the position that she had long considered hers. I completely don't have that thought. A familiar male voice rang out, interrupting the confused thoughts. She turned around. It was Bastian. Odette. Odette stood up straight, adjusting her skirt as usual whenever she had to face him. Bastian, yes, please come in. Bastian, with a cold expression, stepped into the room. Seeing him, she surprisingly wondered, what's the matter? That door has never been opened even once, since the day of the wedding. Bastian suddenly stopped. He turned his face away. Odette wondered, why suddenly? Odette looked at the mirror next to her and saw that she was wearing a thin nightgown. She startled. Oh. She quickly used her hand to cover her body in panic. What to do? I forgot that I was wearing a super thin nightgown. Bastian sat down and propped his hand over his eyes, feigning, I've seen everything. She blamed herself, because I let my mind be pulled into the sarcasm, the contemptuous gazes from that woman, that I forgot something more important, keeping my distance from the man I am living with. Or rather, the man that I am living with in a contract marriage. I was just thinking about things related to Sandrine. Should she turn away, say something? But before Odette could react, Bastian's eyes still did not leave her, that silent gaze, not rude, but carrying a weight that made her feel as if she was standing naked in the quiet room. Why is he staring so intently? Unable to endure any longer, Odette spoke, her voice soft but firm. Please turn your face away for a moment. Bastian raised his eyebrow lightly as if thinking about something. But then he turned his body away, leaving her with a few precious seconds of privacy. Odette immediately ran to the place to put the robe. She quickly picked it up. She closed the robe tightly, trying to breathe deeply to dispel the heat that was flushing on her cheeks. Thank you, it's okay now, she said, her voice having regained some composure. Even so, the embarrassment had not yet disappeared, only suppressed under a layer of composure. Bastian turned back. No teasing words, no strange gazes, just a decisive and realistic sentence. Sit down, I have a few things I want to talk about regarding the dinner party. Odette sat down, but in her heart still lingered the echoes of the moment just now. Bastian looked at her silently without saying anything. His presence always made her feel small and controlled, as if with just one look, one gesture, she had been pushed into a weak position. It's strange that this no longer feels like a fake marriage. Everything is going beyond the boundaries that she thought she could control. she married a commoner. Odette is the wife of a commoner, so now she is also a commoner. Those words rang out, slowly, coldly, as sharp as a carefully forged blade. Each word glided over her skin, then cut into the self-esteem that Odette had tried so hard to hide. She stood there. Not shrinking, not retreating, but in her heart, there was a throbbing pain. She replied, her voice not high but firm, "That, I know very well," Odette thought to herself. What does he suddenly want to say? Bastian continued, his voice lowered, "If so, then you should act like a commoner. If you act like a noble lady, show dignity like just now, you will easily be tortured." Each word was like throwing cold water on her face. He despised the dignity she tried to keep, as if self-respect was a luxury that should not exist in a marriage that was priced with money and agreement. But she, Odette, still